Bills.
Hey guys, before we begin this week's show, I'd just like to apologize. We had some audio issues coming specifically from my end of the microphone. I just had a lot of outside noise interfering with the audio, so it's not as crisp as what we would usually like it to be. Regardless, it's still a great show, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you. Hey guys, welcome to the 48 Minutes or Less NBA podcast, where we bring you your weekly dose of all things NBA in 48 minutes or less. I'm Lewis, and joining me today are Sawyer and our special guest, George. If you want to take a minute, just introduce yourself, George. That'd be great.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. It's great that we're finally doing this. You both talked about doing this for a long time, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be, but it feels rewarding, and it's nice to kind of do something creative for once and just kind of get this ball rolling and see where it takes us.
Plus, I mean, you guys get to talk about the NBA.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm just happy that we're going to be able to just do what we normally do when we hang out with each other and just talk NBA. I
said we just have a record button on all the time, and we do a lot of edits.
Yeah, a lot of edits, and we don't know that much about basketball necessarily, but Hey,
I know more than you. Nah, kidding. So what we'd like to do today is just kind of run through some news and things that happened in the NBA this past week, and then kind of do like a fun topic for the second half of the show. So to begin, something that most listeners are probably aware of was the fight that happened late last week between Towns and Embiid. And I just want to get you guys' opinion on that and what you guys thought about the whole situation.
I'm glad there was a suspension and that they did not get suspended. I do believe that Towns and Embiid both deserve more than 2 games, especially the way that it escalated afterwards. And the fact that Ben Simmons did not get a suspension at all is actually surprising to me, considering the way he was giving Karl-Anthony Towns a chokehold. That's my opinion on it. I don't know if you have anything else on it.
I mean,
Lewis
my opinion's kind of biased. I like the 2-game suspension because Towns is on my fantasy team, but at the same time, it just feels like it's more of that NBA not punishing stars. Because I'm pretty sure if this had been like Marcus Morris and Bobby Portis, they would have gotten like 6 games, even though nothing hit.
Last year, Brandon Ingram got 4 games, right? But he threw a punch that actually hit, if I recall. So it seemed like Towns threw a punch, but it didn't make contact. And then the whole Ben Simmons thing, it was like he was holding Towns in the beginning, and then they kind of scuffled on the floor, and maybe he didn't know where his hands were, or maybe that's just what he does to his girlfriends.
Well, it was kind of like you're holding someone back. It was just like on his neck.
On his neck, yeah, exactly.
And I mean, Simmons and Towns are friends, so I don't think it was with bad intent.
So I really thought that before it was going to be Towns was going to get 2 games, because even though it didn't hit, he threw a punch, and Embiid was going to get 1. But then Embiid goes on Twitter and just starts going ham on Towns.
It's not even about the Twitter part too. It's after the fact. The way he was smiling and pumping up the crowd afterwards, it just like everybody else enjoyed that. Everybody enjoyed that. All the fans and stuff enjoyed that, obviously, because it was whatever. But like that was escalating it a bit too much.
So what do you guys think about there possibly being a fight in the offseason in the octagon between these two?
I mean, I'd probably pay to watch. Not too much. I'm not about to spend $100 on a fight between 2 basketball players that can't even land a hit. But it'd be interesting. I hope Ben Simmons gets to ref. That'd be pretty fun.
You, sir? You want to put any money down?
No, that needs to be free, streamed on YouTube or something like that. And like maybe either that or like maybe the money that is raised, goes to charity. Like something nice like that. To NBA Cares. Goes to NBA Cares.
Wait, who do you have, though? Who do you think will win?
Who do I put money on? Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with Embiid, the guy that plays defense.
But no, he plays defense. But I mean, Towns, he's got that sky hook, you never know. He's got that sky hook and come down and smash him right in there in the face.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Embiid.
I'll take Towns.
Are you really going with Towns?
I'll
You're
take
gonna take
Towns.
Towns.
Okay.
So my only issue is like Embiid is like he could be one of those guys that talks a big game because he's always on Twitter, and you know those guys, they don't know how to fight. So moving on, what do you guys think about the whole Golden State Steph Curry injury? Like it was recently reported that he was going to have to get surgery on his hand and at least 3 months, and he will be reevaluated after 3 months.
I mean, it's a huge loss for them, but that just highlights the fact that they can easily get into the lottery now. And I think that will benefit them. I think because of the injury to him, they're more likely to deal D'Angelo Russell, despite the fact that they say they aren't. I think it gives them, it gives them a way out. Like it gives people aren't going to look at him as bad because they're like, oh well, it's a lost season. You might as well try to get something, nothing. But I mean, Russell,
Steve Kerr might be able to keep his job, right?
He won't lose his job, and he won't at all. Steve Kerr will not lose his job. But I mean, D'Angelo Russell's a little banged up. Draymond Green is a bit banged up. I mean, he just hurt his index finger or whatever. He probably just like flicked somebody off and hurt his finger. I don't know, but I think it gives them a chance to actually come away with somebody decent in the draft next year. But more than anything, they don't have to rush Steph Curry back. It's not like they have to rush him back in order to be ready for the playoff push. You know what I mean? Or Klay Thompson, for that matter. They can actually keep Klay Thompson out for the rest of the year if they like, or bring him back for like 15 minutes a game, something like that, just to get so he's not like completely rusty when the next season starts. I do know that Steph Curry does want to play in the Olympics still next year. But we'll see if that changes at all.
Yeah, it's you never wish an injury on a player, but it's probably the best thing that could have happened to Golden State. I think it gives them an easy way out. They won't get the oh my god, what happened to this amazing team? It was like, oh, it's injury happened. Even though like people will forget the fact that they were playing really bad in the beginning of the season because Stephen Curry's out, and then when they come back, they're just gonna restrict Stephen Curry, and they're probably gonna rest Draymond more as a way of saying, hey, we already lost all this game, so now they can tank without seeming like they're tanking. So it's honestly a win-win. They can get a good draft pick next year. They can try to deal D'Lo, and then they can go and try. I mean, if you get Klay, Draymond, Curry, and you can get some pieces, and they won't have the hard cap next year, they can contend again, at least be a championship contender.
Yeah, as long as they end up next year having as long as they have their big three with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, I mean, their future can't be all that bad.
Now, do you guys think they'll trade if, say, they do end up with the worst record or near the bottom of the league? Do you think they'll actually trade that pick or keep it?
If I were them, with the way how cap strapped they are, they should keep that pick. Get a solid young piece from the draft.
I mean, because like a lot of people compare this to like the time with the Spurs in the Duncan era with Dave Robinson being out, but apparently it's just there's no Duncan in this year's draft, so it's not going to be specifically that same situation.
There's no Zion in this.
There's no Zion
right now.
There's no that one
now,
guy
for now.
Yeah.
I mean, Zion didn't come onto the scene until like nobody was thinking Zion was going to be who Zion was until like the first week of the year, but.
I think it was till he dunked and his head went over the rim was when people were like, oh, this guy's good.
Oh, no, it was the first game. After the first game, the Zion hype was real. But I'm not saying something like that is going to happen this year, but there'll be somebody that will eventually like show themselves above everybody else and be the number one pick. But you're assuming that Golden State's going to end up with the number one pick. That's not
so,
which is even less likely now.
Yeah, it's even what. No, I'm just saying like. You know how the Lakers traded the fourth pick? Will Golden State retool, pull that fourth pick, and then try to get maybe some like talent, some depth, because that's what they lack?
No, I just don't see it because the Lakers traded the fourth pick in order to get their talent.
I guess
they already
so,
have their talent, so what would they trade their pick for?
And not just that, the Lakers still had cap space. The Warriors do not have the cap space. They would have to trade one of the four people they have. So you're saying that they would trade Russell and say maybe like the fifth pick in the draft for somebody. What team do you see that being realistic? Because they're going to have to trade that salary that they're going to trade out. They're going to have to receive right back again. So is there somebody around that $25-27 million range that makes sense for them?
And that Russell would make sense for that team because there's only so many. Because point guards, there's a lot of point guards in the league. So
exactly.
Which team does Russell? Like, a lot of people call it Minnesota, but, like, what can Minnesota offer? Really, Minnesota's like if you're
no
looking...
one wants Wiggins.
No one wants Wiggins, so it's pretty much Rocco is kind of their only valuable piece because they are not trading Towns. So it's not that easy. I don't know.
Oh, Robert Covington on Golden State.
I guess Orlando could use a point guard.
I think they're fine trying to see where the Markelle Fultz.
I think they're set on Markelle Fultz.
See where that
so?
experience goes.
Because D'Angelo Russell for Aaron Gordon.
But if I'm Orlando, I would rather shoot for like someone like Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah. I guess somebody that can like kind of stabilize everything.
And Aaron Gordon's contract is like $19 million.
Okay, so talking about Golden State, how about we take a second to talk about a past Warrior and some comments that he let out to Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith earlier this week, or last week, I guess. So kind of, I guess the main point of the whole interview was they asked him what if the Draymond Green incident that happened earlier last year, if that was one of the main reasons why he decided to leave. And then he kind of, I felt like it was reluctant, like he was reluctant to say it, but he did say that it influenced the factor in him leaving. And then Draymond had been on a podcast where he was talking about that whole situation as well and how it kind of affected the team moving forward. And it was just kind of refreshing, I guess, to see Kevin Durant be so open about that because he's usually pretty reluctant with the media, especially guys from First Take that are pretty quick to criticize him and about, oh, he's not a man and he's not like the go-getter, he's not a Kobe type or whatever. So I thought that was pretty refreshing. And then Kevin Durant was talking about like how he never really had kind of any real interest in going to the Knicks because the Nets were just a better team. The way they were rebuilding, they were doing things the right way, and that I guess the media concocted the idea that he was going to the Knicks, but that was never really an option for him.
I don't know. I felt like Durant was saying for part of the interview, he's just like, oh, the media creates these ideas that we don't push. They created the idea of him going to the Knicks because the Knicks was a big organization in New York. It was the lucrative organization in New York. But he never said that he was going to go. So he was sort of saying that they were inventing these ideas. But then at the same time, they were also saying that he wanted to leave Golden State because Draymond called him a bitch. And he was saying that they created these ideas, but part of the reason why he left Golden State was because Draymond called him a bitch. So the media wasn't just, they're creating ideas, but they're also not. I feel like Durant mainly went on the interview because no one's talking about him right now.
That is true.
I honestly do. And it was also a really awkward interview. If you get the chance to see it, his face is just so uncomfortable.
Pretty much the entire interview, Stephen A. Smith, Sawyer, spends the entire interview saying, I think you're the best. You're the best. You are the number one player in the NBA. You are the greatest basketball player. But you are the greatest basketball player. But why don't you take over
Stephen
games? Don't you want to go to Brooklyn so you can lead your own team? How's my impersonation?
It's pretty good.
Skip. Skip.
Skip.
Gotta stay off the weed.
Taco Tuesday.
Okay. Getting a little
I
bit
just
off
love that
topic.
when he says that. That's just hilarious.
So yeah, that was it was just kind of impressive. I think it was an awkward interview, but I really liked Durant's answer to this about like, you know, at the end of the day, it's not so much about like, oh, I need to go here to win championships. It's just like he likes basketball and he makes a decision where he thinks he's going to be the happiest. In the same way that if you're unhappy in your current job, you look for other options, he does the same thing. And there might not be any outside factors of winning championships or being the greatest all time. Sometimes it's just about being in a place where you feel your mental well-being is the best. And like a lot of times we don't think of these basketball players as real people, and that's all they are. Like, he doesn't need anything else. He just wants to be with his friend and play basketball, the game that he loves, and just have a good time. And I thought that was really well done in the interview.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times in the media you hear like people being like, "Oh, Durant's so weird. Durant's always changing his mind. He can't." Durant's 29.
Yeah, Durant's a millennial.
Yeah, he's figuring it out. He's figuring himself out. Mm-hmm. And he's figuring himself out, and it just happens to be harder because he's constantly being looked at by the media. So just like let the guy be him.
Let him be him. So Stephen A. Smith talks about how KD is the best player in the NBA. But I think this weekend we witnessed the passing of the crown. LeBron James and Luka battled it out, mano a mano, triple-double, a triple-double. Let's take a minute and just talk about what might have been the game of the season, and it's only a week and a half in.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the game of the season right now, just because I watched that personally, and from start to finish, it was just an intense game. Watching LeBron, especially in the fourth quarter and overtime, the way he just took over the game, seeing Luka get hurt. He got hurt in that game. He got chinned on the back of his head by Dwight Howard. It was an accident. It wasn't on purpose, but he was like bloody and stuff. You could tell he was like a little like out of it a little bit and stuff. But he like stuck it out and went in that game and made a great pass towards the end to Finney Smith there in the corner when he took that three and then put them up by three, I should say. And then right after that, seeing LeBron come down and make that pass to Danny Green, just watching all of that in the moment was great. And then LeBron just took over that overtime period. Like, it was an overall, I felt it was a great game to watch. And it's definitely the greatest game of the season, I feel, so far.
No, it was it's gonna be it's gonna be hard to top that one, but it's also like, it's not just the amazing of the game, it was the significance of it. LeBron being the oldest player ever to record a 30-15 triple-double, and Luka being the youngest to ever do it. In the beginning of the season, people have been talking about how LeBron just wasn't looking like the same. He didn't have that same... and then just watching him take over and being like, hey, I'm still LeBron. I might not do this 82 games a year, but when you need it, I'm here, and I can take over games, and I can hit clutch shot after clutch shot.
I mean, he's playing really well.
Yeah, he's playing really well. I mean, he's currently leading the league in assists as well with 11.
Yeah, he's actually peaking, I feel like, as an assistant.
As a passer, and he's also playing good defense, which has been rare for LeBron in the last couple of years.
He's playing passable defense.
The Lakers are the number one defense, right? So, I mean, he's got to contribute to that.
And don't forget, this is 2 weeks in. Like, this Anthony Davis LeBron tandem, it's just gonna get even better.
So that's pretty much kind of like some of the main news that we thought would be important, that we wanted to kind of look over and talk about. So now we're gonna do a little bit for the second half of the podcast. We're gonna kind of talk about 3 of the teams that have kind of surprised us the most so far, and then 3 of the teams that have been the biggest disappointment. So if any of you guys want to take it away.
Well, for me, the team that has surprised me the most this season has been the Timberwolves. I figured Karl Anthony Towns was due for like his big breakout, and I actually had him as like a top 5 MVP candidate this year, at least in my personal.
Do you think Towns has kind of cemented himself, at least with, I mean, it's a small sample size, as possibly a top 10 player coming in to maybe next year and stuff like that?
Yes, I actually think this year he's cementing himself clearly as a top 10 player, and I would say as the top center in the league right now, I would say he's at least right now he's a top center in the league playing the last week.
If we're counting Davis as a power forward.
Yes. But he's a top player in the league, probably top 10 right now. In the first 4 games, he's only played 4 games because he's suspended. They have a 4-1 record. They won one game against the Wizards, but in his games that he's played, he's averaging 27.3 points, 11.5 rebounds, and then four assists. Shooting 54.4% from the field, 52% from three.
I mean, in a way, like the way that Towns has been able to take over for that team, he's been doing that though for the last couple of years. I mean, he's been this player for a while now. It's just a matter of I think the biggest thing with Towns was, could his play translate into team success? And at least so far, it looks like it has. They don't have the greatest offense, but their defense is actually surprisingly, at least right now.
Which is actually surprising. I mean, a lot of that probably has to do with Rocco, and then Towns has also stepped it up on the defensive end. Wiggins is still crap.
And Okogie as
right?
well.
No, Wiggins is just like detrimental. Yeah. Just like detrimental. They would probably be a much better team without him. Even getting any rotation minutes, but that's for another story.
Well, they pay him too much to not give him time.
They're 16th in offensive rating right now.
Yeah,
but you got to remember they played a game without Towns, and when Towns is on the field, is playing on the court, they are top 5.
Well, they put up 131 on that game against the Wizards, so they were not lacking on offense. But it is the Wizards.
Yeah,
they are about an average offensive team overall. I feel they're about an average, but the fact they're playing as a top 10 defensive team is huge, and I think Cat is actually playing better defense this year.
Maybe he got tired of being called a bitch, right?
I think that was their end.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, everybody knew Karl-Anthony Towns could play ball. Everybody knew that he could score and get his rebounds and stuff. It was about his defense and about how his play could translate to
at least so far it has. I guess we'll just have to see if they can maintain this, fiery start. They are playing the Bucks tonight, and I take it that the Bucks are going to win.
And the Bucks should win that game. I mean, yeah, the Bucks should win that game, but I mean, don't forget that they did squander a 20-point lead to the Heat earlier in the year, and that was without Jimmy Butler. And speaking of them, they're also off to a really hot start as well. They're 5-1 right. They're 5-1 right now. Easily a top 10 offense.
No, not easily. They are a top 10 offense.
They are a top 10 offense. Yeah, they're definitely a top 10 offense, and they're a top 5 defense too. And it's not even and Butler's not even shooting well. Butler's shooting like under 40% from the field right now. But I mean, he's averaging like 15 points, 7 assists, and 7 rebounds. It's ridiculous. And then they also have Bam, who's playing really well as well. Winslow, if he shot better, would be doing well. But I mean, his stat line looks good. 15 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. And then Kendrick Nunn coming onto the scene, man. Leading all rookies right now.
Their two rookies are actually making more of an impact than I thought. Because both Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero are both looking really good. And then one thing about the Heat is, besides the fact that they have Spoelstra, who's probably a top 5 coach in the NBA, is the fact that after so many years of not having that top and high end top 20 talent, top 15 talent, these kind of role players kind of learn to play basketball. And so now you're putting these role players who actually know how to play basketball around a guy that can actually lead something. And then that's why I think part of the reason why the Heat have started so well. And I know preseason estimates had them around a 44, 45 win team. But if they continue at this pace, I think they could probably cement themselves as probably a top 3 team in the East. And that's just with Butler, who's been inefficient since he's come back, and he's only played 3 games now. So I'm gotta say I'm pleasantly surprised on a daily basis.
I feel like I'm surprised with the Heat, but I'm actually more surprised with Bam in general. I was already pretty high on the Heat because the Heat is a group of just dogs.
Yeah.
And Butler is a dog. And it is like going to a cage fight. They're just gonna go hard every single night. They are probably, in my opinion, one of the most annoying people to play. They're probably one of the most annoying people to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, you do not want to match
they're
them.
just going to come out every single night.
Oh, for sure.
I was already pretty high on them, but I think Bam has shown so much growth. He's just great defensively. His offensive game has improved. He's shooting really well. He's just grows so much as a player. And even though Winslow's shot is here or there, he's also just grown so much as a player. I actually are higher because I think they are one of the teams that might be looking to make a trade for the playoffs this year before the trade deadline is over. Be like, hey, we're actually like a championship contending team this year.
I don't know, man. I feel like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, but it ain't broke, but it's probably not good enough.
I mean, like I remember before the season started, people talked about the Chris Paul trading Chris Paul. But I don't know. I'm with that. Like they have between Winslow and Dragic, as long as Dragic can stay decently healthy, I think that's part of the reason why he's coming off the bench. Is just kind of keep him on a minutes restriction.
Well, not just that. He's able, by coming off the bench, he can lead the second unit, and it's actually benefited them more having his playmaking ability and his scoring coming off the bench, especially when playing with Tyler Hero. And in all honesty, the fact that you have 4 or 5 players on that team that are averaging over 5 assists a game, at least. They're moving the ball around. They average 10 steals a game, 7 blocks a game.
They kind of remind me. I know Butler's kind of like a star, but right now they kind of remind me of the Clippers from last year, where they just had a ton of guys that just knew how to play basketball, and sometimes that just gets you wins, at least in the regular season. But the way that with Spoelstra and the way these guys play defense, I think that they'll be a tough matchup for any team. Now, one team with playoff hopes, and I think it's too early to count them into possibly a chance to make the playoffs because it could just be a good stretch. But they have been looking really good. Is the Phoenix Suns? What do you guys think about them? Is this for real, or is this just like last year? They had that stretch where they pulled 3 wins in a row.
No, they. I don't think they're not going to make it in the West. They're not going to make the playoffs in the West. I'll say that right now. There are too many good teams in the West.
So it's not a Cinderella story, you think?
I think it's a Cinderella story in the sense of I think the Suns are for real a good basketball team. I think they are a good. I think they are.
I never said they were a bad
team. I think it's a Cinderella story in the same way the Sacramento Kings were a Cinderella. They're not going to be able to make the playoffs in the West. I think they could make the playoffs if they played in the East.
Yeah, well, all the teams in the West
could probably make the playoffs if they played in the East, except probably maybe the Grizzlies and
the Warriors. Yeah,
but they're an actually good basketball team. They're a watchable basketball team, and it's what happens when you have adults in the room that know how to play basketball. And even though Ricky Rubio might not be a star, and even though Aaron Baines might not be the best center in the NBA, they know how to play good basketball.
If the Suns are winning, that Ricky Rubio signing does not look that overpaid.
Well, I mean, he's always been a good player.
Yeah, Aaron Baines has been surprising to me, and I guess, I mean, we'll see what happens once Ayton comes back from his drug suspension. But
that Mary J.
Part of me,
he's gotta stay off
the weed.
But no, I mean, in my opinion, I feel that the Mavs, they're a big surprise so far this year for sure. The Suns, but I see the Mavs and the Spurs will probably make it in.
Yeah, my thing with the Suns is right now they're 7th in defensive rating, and so when you're playing Devin Booker and Kelly Oubre, are you a top 10 defense? I just don't see that being a possibility.
No, I think they've been lucky with opponent shooting. You also have to remember that DeAndre Ayton is coming back.
Yeah,
and he is just not a good defender. He looked really good. Sorry, he looked better in the game he played. But and that was the first game of the season. It was against the Kings. But at the time, everyone was thinking of the Kings from last year, and the Kings haven't necessarily been that good this year.
Yeah,
they've won the last 2 games, but they haven't been as good as people thought. And so Ayton doesn't even look that good anymore defensively. and so their defense is gonna fall. And I think Uber's probably playing the best stretch of basketball he's played his entire career.
I just worry about like consistency because these guys are kind of Baines, Oubre, not so much Booker on the defensive end. They're kind of playing over their heads, and like I do not think they will be as bad as they were last year.
Yeah, the over-under's, 29 games?
Or something around there. So I can see them being a 38-win team. I don't think they're, considering, like they still have, like, the Timberwolves, I would probably say, have a higher chance of making the playoffs. The Mavericks probably have a higher chance. Regardless, they are looking good, and Phoenix basketball is finally decent to watch.
Yeah, I would actually be higher on them if they hadn't drafted Cam Johnson.
I mean, if things go right, it's very possible that they, in theory, could make the playoffs.
Things have to go really right for them, and really wrong for everybody else.
Yeah, I would say like a season-ending injury to like
everybody else.
Yeah, like in the rail another team, like Damian Lillard has an injury, and then the Portland Trailblazers fall out, or LaMarcus Aldridge has.
And I know they're not one of our surprise teams, but I will say I'll say this, at least the Spurs. I actually thought they may not make the playoffs this year, but they will again.
They're going to make the playoffs every year. They're the Spurs.
They're the Spurs, dude.
They're the Spurs. It's like the teams I never count out is Portland and the Spurs. They're just like they know how to play good basketball for the regular season.
Yeah,
and
enough to win.
And they're just going to wreck bad teams.
So talking about teams that, from the looks of it, won't be making playoffs. I just kind of want to run real quick through like 3 teams that we don't have to say a lot of them because I'm guessing most people know about the struggles of these 3 teams, but just kind of want to run through the Warriors and kind of how they started out the season. They started the season 1-5. They're currently the worst defense in the NBA. They're not even bad. It's not just the fact that they're bad. They're worse than the Cavs were last year, and the Cavs were abysmal. And then with all the injuries, I think that the Cavs have to be. I'm sorry, not the Cavs. The Warriors have to be ruled out of the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, I think the Warriors want to be ruled out. They with the Warriors right now, even considering them a disappointment, is hard because of injury. But I'm trying to go to like the first couple games where Stephen Curry was not injured. And they were hugely disappointment. Stephen Curry, I thought, was going to be having an MVP season. He was shooting career lows. Draymond Green looks like he needs to, instead of lose 23 pounds, gain another 23 pounds and just give up. The team was a mess. Nothing worked. And yeah, they were still not fully healthy even at the beginning of the season with both their centers being out. But it looked like it wasn't going to work. And that's what happens when you play a bunch of cheerleaders. There's so much you can do. And in the West.
And I never thought I would say this a few months ago, but I actually feel a little sorry for the Warriors a little bit.
Now, another team that has kind of started off to a disappointing start, although they seem to have been kind of going back into pace. They just kicked off their last 2 games with W's, is the Sacramento Kings. And I don't know if I just want to say that the team is worse than last year. Maybe they overachieved last year and then they're just kind of regressing to the mean. Or if it was just a bad start, because that happens. Teams can sometimes just slump getting to field the new players. They have a new head coach in Luke Walton. How do you guys feel about the Kings so far?
Well, I mean, I think we need to start asking ourselves, is Luke Walton actually a good coach? So far, you can't really say that he is, considering
I feel like he got the idea of being a good coach because of what he did with the Golden State Warriors. But I could have done that. Like, hey, run everything through Curry. Run all the defense through Draymond. Like, it doesn't seem that hard.
And it's not like it's not like they have, and it's not like the Kings have bad players either. Like De'Aaron Fox is pretty good. Buddy Hield is pretty good. Harrison Barnes.
I've always been a super fan of Deadman.
You know,
he can shoot threes, and I've always found him a little bit underrated. But he has not been good.
I heard this the other day, and I thought it was perfect. Harrison Barnes is the most mediocre player at getting paid. Is like the best mediocre player at getting paid. Probably. He isn't that good, but he makes money like he is.
But he isn't that bad.
Yeah. I feel like the Kings' rough start is a huge part, not just Luke Walton, but a huge part is Mr. No one comes here from free agency, Buddy Hield.
Well, you think it affected team morale?
Not only the morale, he's been terrible.
He has been picking it up the last 2 games. But I really just think that the Kings are going to go back into place and they'll just start playing better basketball.
Do you think the Kings have a shot of making the playoffs this year?
No, but I didn't think they had one to begin with.
No.
Do you think they can be in
Yeah.
playoffs, like slight playoff possibility? Like there's like a 10%
I
chance.
think they will because I feel that at least the Kings organization will try hard to at least match last year's victory so that they could tell their fans, hey, look, we got 39 wins last year. This year we got 40. We're moving forward, guys. Buy season tickets.
No, I honestly think they're going to end up more of like a 35-win team.
We'll have to see. I mean,
38.
I don't know. I want to believe in the Kings because I really like De'Aaron Fox. I think he's one of the best young point guards in the league, and he's really cerebral. And so I've always been a fan of him, even since his rookie year when he was awful. So I hope good things for the Kings. It's a fan base that hasn't received anything good in so many years, and last year was a bright spot, and it just kind of sucks to see them regress back. So then, kind of another young team that has kind of been a little bit disappointing is it's not so much that they have the worst record, it's just the Chicago Bulls. When you looked at the schedule that they started with one of the easiest schedules in the NBA, and how they just dropped these games that they should have won, and people were saying that the Bulls were gonna either make playoffs, be in competition for the 8th or 7th seed, and instead they're looking like they're gonna be in competition for a number 1 pick. What do you guys think about the Bulls so far?
I just don't think that they've progressed as much as people thought they were going to. Levine, Lauri Markkanen, and especially Otto Porter Jr. Haven't really. I don't believe anyway. Have lived up to what they could do this year. Wendell Carter is doing pretty well, and Levine's not doing awful, but he could be doing a lot better. But I just think the team thought they were. Like, I feel like they thought that they were, like, at this certain point, but really they were, like, actually a little lower than
it's
that.
It's because they lost to the Hornets. They lost to the let me see here, to the Knicks. They lost to the Cavs. They lost to the Pacers. And then they beat the Pistons and the Grizzlies. So, I mean, if we're looking at their schedule, really the only team that you could say is like a team that's like a top 4 team in the end, like top 4 for their conference, would be the Raptors. So it's just they've had a really easy schedule, and the fact that they're only 2-5 for the season is kind of disappointing. And I think part of that starts with their defense and their inability to get spots, as well as their shot. Like, Markkanen hasn't been shooting well. Otto Porter has been awful. Starting, it's just been a mess in Chicago.
Though I feel like Otto Porter always starts kind of slow.
He does have that tendency to start slow.
Yeah, he always kind of starts slow.
I mean, I don't think that Otto Porter is going to be like this the rest of the year, but it's from what people thought and what a lot of people expected them to be. It's just not where they thought.
I think expectations are also high because last year with Otto Porter, when they traded for him, they went like 9-10 or something with him. So people were like, yeah, let me take this small sample size and boost it up. But it's also Chicago fans. So,
well, it's not just that too. It's the fact that like last year people were like, oh, it was the coach was the problem. Oh no,
it might be the fact that the Markkanen might not be very good. Right.
I don't think Markkanen is a franchise player. I don't think Levine is a franchise player. I don't like the fact that Chris Dunn is playing over Kobe White.
Kobe White started really hot, and then he has kind of come down.
But he's also a young point guard, and I think with the Bulls is that they started rebuilding like three years ago, seasons ago, and they're already here talking about playoffs, and they're signing ready to playoffs. Like, take time. Atlanta's taking it slow. Like, you're pushing too hard. You don't have a franchise player. Like, you just don't have a franchise player.
I don't think I think Lauri Markkanen could be a franchise player. I think he has enough skill. I just don't believe he should be taking I don't think he should be taking.
Do you think Lauri
6 threes a
Markkanen
game.
could be a top 15 player in the NBA at his prime? I don't.
I believe he could be. At some point in his career, I feel like he
his
should
shoddy
get there.
defense and his inability to shoot the three. Lauri Markkanen is the idea of a 3-point shooter, not so much an actual 3-point shooter.
I feel like he has a better shot than like Levine to be a top 15 player.
But like people have been talking about this. He had a good rookie season. Then his sophomore season was kind of a slump, but people said it was injuries. And now he started the season. He started the first game hot, putting up 30 points, and then he's just kind of like. It's the idea that it's a tall, white, lanky guy, so he has to be able to shoot. And he hasn't really proven to be that great of a shooter. And if Lauri Markkanen isn't that great of a shooter and can't play defense, what is his ceiling?
I suppose, but I mean, I also think I don't think Wendell Carter is the best.
But
next to him either.
you can argue that
think they
Wendell
really
Carter
play
has
off
been
each
the
other
best
very
player
well.
for the Bulls so far this season.
I mean, Wendell Carter, I feel, could also play better as well.
The other guys that have, like Thomas Satoransky has been kind of a disappointing for me. I really liked him in Washington as a backup point. He hasn't been that great. He's been starting at the point guard, and then Thaddeus Young was really impactful for the Pacers, and he hasn't been very. He just hasn't seen like himself in Chicago, and I'm not sure if it's the coaching.
It's hard to play defense when no one else wants to.
Exactly.
I honestly think the rotation is the problem. I don't I feel like the rotation is a little off. Like I think they're not really playing players at the
good
right
thing
times.
that I think Chicago has going for it is that the team, they've been bad, but the teams they were supposed to be bad have also been really bad. So it's not like they dug themselves into a huge hole like, say, the Warriors. Or, I would say the Warriors, because I don't think Memphis had any real ideas of making playoffs. So they can still come back. Atlanta, Orlando, Cleveland, Brooklyn, and Chicago have all won 2 games. They just lost one more than all the other teams. So it's not like they're that out. And then Pistons are the 8th seed currently, and they're 3-4.
Yeah, I mean it's only been about 2 weeks. It's just the way that they're trending, the way the Kings are trending, it just doesn't look good. Things could turn around easily. Like 2 weeks from now, we could be talking about how look at the way that the Kings and the Bulls have turned themselves around. I mean, anything can happen. It's only been 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, guys. Hope you liked what you heard. We will try to release this weekly, Tuesday or Wednesday, but the best way to stay up to date with all things 48 minutes or less is to hit that subscribe button. Also, please rate and review. We read all feedback, and share this podcast with your friends, please. It'll really help us grow so we can continue to release great content. All right, talk to you guys next week. Next week.